Okay, I'm very pleased to introduce our online program, Master in Data Science. We launched this program just 1 month ago in April, and now it is already running, and the next intake will be in October. And I hope you are interested in applying for this program. So the next slide, please. So today, I would like you to give some test of what this program will include. So today I will run a master class in AI. So yes, I'm director of this Master in Data Science program, but I'm also responsible for module, Artificial Intelligence module. And today I will give you a master class like one topic. This topic will be about decision support systems, but to guide you through, I will make first a brief introduction to AI, and then we will dive into decision support systems and particularly Bayesian networks, and we also will look how Bayesian networks can be implemented in Python. And then I will tell about an example, so you can see cutting edge. I will tell about one of projects that I am personally participating and know all inside out about it. Okay, I hope you are as excited as I am about telling you this. For the best experience, and it is master level, so you need to have basic understanding of programming, especially in Python, and for this particular presentation, so examples will be in Python, and we also require our applicants to have basic knowledge in math and stats. For this particular lecture, I expect that you know such concepts as probability, conditional probability, joint distributions. If you join our program, we recommend to start from taking 2 modules. One module is programming in Python for data science, and another module is math and stats for data science. So we will equip you with necessary knowledge and skills that are required for a data scientist, but still, we expect students to have basic skills, otherwise it might be difficult. The next slide, please. Okay, so AI. I'm sure you hear a lot around this concept, and some things are controversial. This spread is from complete disbelief. Some people just deny, they think it's just another hype, it will go away, and quite a lot of people expect that it will solve all the problem. AI can do everything. As often truth is somewhere in the middle. What adds to this confusion is that there is actually no any agreed definition of what AI is. And one reason of it is because there is no agreed definition of what intelligence is. So how you can define artificial intelligence if you don't know what intelligence is? And for different people, intelligence may mean different things. So I put examples that generally recognized as intelligent behavior: playing chess, driving a car, learning new concepts, making decisions. And this is what we will talk mostly about today, decision support systems. But actually, some simple behavior, what we consider as simple, can be very complex. For example, just walking. A child starts walking about 1 year old, and we think it's very simple. But it turned out it's extremely difficult to teach a robot to walk because so many processes are involved. So is it intelligent behavior or not? So it is a difficult question, and we will not try to answer it. I work in knowledge representation for about 20 years, and I know that if there is no agreed view on something, it's better not to define it at all. Otherwise, it only adds to confusion. That is why we just will follow examples what intelligent behavior is, but then again question what intelligence is. We shouldn't think about it only what humans consider intelligence, because we have a chance to build something completely different. So AI system can exhibit completely different behavior, but still can be qualified as intelligent, some hybrid intelligence. But again, I will leave it out. I hope you can discuss and think about it, because they are fascinating questions. But there is at least one formal approach to intelligence. It is famous Turing test, and Turing is considered as a pioneer of artificial intelligence. His work in 1950s, it is where we can claim artificial intelligence was born, this research. And his test is quite simple. If human interacting with some agent without seeing this agent cannot see a difference if interaction is with a human or with, no, in case of Turing test, it's some program. So this is a formal approach. If there is no difference, that program exhibits behavior like human exhibit. But it's probably concerned only human-like intelligence. So can humans recognize different types of intelligence? Maybe, because we think that many animals are intelligent. But okay, we will talk about decision support systems, and it's generally recognized that making decision is difficult. It's intelligent, it's also important. It is something what we do it almost every day. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so there are still some agreed views on AI, and AI generally is considered as narrow or general. So narrow AI is more applied system for some specific domains, and examples like language translators, chatbots, spam filters, and all major companies now are using AI technologies. So most famous projects is Watson, Siri, Google Assistant. You probably facing AI technologies every day without realizing it. You open email, and behind is this spam filters that is using AI technology, some form of machine learning to filter out your spam. So it's already all around us, and trajectory is that by 2030s, it can additionally produce about $13 trillion for the world economy. It is the largest slice compared to any other area. So trajectory is extremely optimistic, and it's clear that AI is not a hype. It is already impacting all areas of economy, and it's here to stay. So another type of AI, general AI, it is, yes, more general intelligence systems that can solve a wide variety of unrelated tasks. So they can learn tasks and solve new problems. And the realistic view is that we are not there yet. Whatever you see in movies, whatever you read in popular magazines, we are just not there. there are some elements of it, people are working on it, but we haven't achieved it yet. And another confusion is about AI and machine learning. So some consider that machine learning, it's all what AI is about, and it's not wrong. Machine learning is the most used technology, AI technology, but AI is wider. So if some consider that AI and machine learning is the same thing, they are not completely wrong. But still, AI also includes so many other technologies. It is very interdisciplinary, and you will see research in robotics, all these psychology, so when especially decision support systems, so how humans are making decisions. So it is a wider spectrum. So it's not all machine learning. But machine learning is the most popular. It's probably the largest portion of all AI research, and it's like in core of many systems. And in machine learning now, deep learning is dominating. But the same as deep learning, it's not full machine learning. There are other techniques. The same AI is not only machine learning. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, this is just to check if you follow me. So what is AI? Next slide, please. Okay, now we will talk about decision support system. The next slide, please. Okay, so decision support system is better defined term. So it is some information system, or it can be a subsystem. It's often a part of some complex AI system, or it can be standalone that enhances the ability to make decisions. And it's not only by a human, by a person, it can be by a software agent, by a robot, or a group of agents, and especially interesting when there is collaboration between robots and humans. So, and they need to make decisions, and they can make individual decisions, or they can make group decisions. So it's a fascinating area of research, but there are also concrete systems around that are already in use. So what is important for data support systems? So they work with data, they need to process data. They also can take knowledge, but they can produce knowledge, and they also can consume models and output models. So they driven by certain tasks. So they are given a task, for example, find the best combination of drugs for a particular patient. They can be given objectives. So what trying to achieve, for example, to minimize suffering of these patients, or to maximize survival in 5 years. They are not the same thing. Solution can be different depending on objectives. And there are constraints, for example, time constraint, especially for cancer patients, so they need very quick solutions, very quick decisions. Or they can be financial considerations. Some treatments are prohibitively expensive. Or nowadays, a hot topic is explainable AI, or XI. In this case, can system output explainable decision. And in many situations, it's very important, and preference will be given maybe not so high quality decision, but that humans actually can understand. But in some situations, it's not that important, like with COVID-19. No one really now cares how it works. They just want a drug. We will figure out later how this drug will obtain. We just want it to work. So there can be different objectives, different constraints that will influence what decision is. The next slide, please. Okay, if you would like to know more about it, and this is what we expect from our master students, we introduce, we guide them, and then we expect them to learn by themselves, to widen their horizon. So I can recommend these two books. So first one, it's Proceedings of International Conference, and it's very good way to learn about trends, what is happening in this area, and be ahead of everyone else, because this is like projection in future in near 5, maybe even 10 years. And another book is about systems that are already around us for several years, that are in use, and so these very solid examples, good to know. The next slide, please. Now we will talk a little bit about the techniques that are used in decision support systems. And these techniques also used in other systems. So fuzzy logic. Fuzzy logic is around for a century, but especially recently it became popular because it is good for dealing with uncertain information. And this is how humans operate. We don't know everything around us. There are gaps, there are uncertainties, and we still manage to make decisions. So deep learning will not work like that. It needs lots of solid data. Only then it can output classifications or predictive models. But we humans, we can operate with few data, uncertain data, and we still make most of time okay decisions, otherwise we wouldn't survive. And fuzzy logic is quite good to mimic it. So instead of hard Boolean logic, yes or no, 1, 0, it can just assign real number between 1 and 0. So is it really belongs to this set or not? So the next slide, please. And again, so from our master students, we expect to learn this variety of techniques, so to be aware, to be able to decide in what situation, what technique is better to apply. So what are constraints, what are advantages, but also wide knowledge. Case-based reasoning, this is extremely interesting technique. Again, it's operational. It is how system can be trained quite easily if you have enough cases. So it's not just data, it's actually a whole scenarios and what happens in that scenarios, like financial market has crashed, how quickly it recovered, what was in 2008, what was in 2011. So system can analyze lots of situations, map, find similarities, and then if they recognize new situation as something what was in the past, then it's reasonable assumptions that it may happen the same way again. And particularly in UK, it is legal system how functions, so it's very case-based system. So if court considered some case, they try to find what was in the past, if there were similar cases, what decision was made, what judgment, and then in this situation they apply the same decision. So it's good, it's conservative, it's consistent, but of course limitations that if it's a new situation and it's far from what happened in the past, then it's not clear what to do. Still, it's extremely good approach for situations that are typical. The next slide, please. Evolutionary computing, it's another extremely interesting area of research. It's inspired by nature, by processes of natural evolution. And especially genetic algorithms are popular. So candidates for solution are encoded as string like a genetic code, and then some random mutation is happening in this string. in evolution. And so several candidates are produced randomly, and then there is some mechanism that eliminates weak solutions, and only strongest survive. And it's working very well for optimization program. And if you know optimization problems are extremely hard problems to solve. They're what is called NP hard problems. And this is a wonderful approach if you have such hard problems. The next slide, please. Qualitative reasoning. So qualitative reasoning is very much human-like computing. So there is not enough attention to this technique, at least not yet, but I'm sure it will be more in use in near future. So instead of operating with this 0, 1, or even is in fuzzy logic, you still have to assign some estimate, some real number usually, or something else. Here it walks away from this altogether. It's just qualitative information. For example, add more water, or reduce heat, or this is more, this is less. And this is how human operates. We don't measure precisely how much water in the bath when you're taking bath. You just see it's enough, or this is too much. And again, in so many situations, this is all what you need. You don't need to know how many centimeters depth in this bucket. And amazingly, these quantitative reasoners, they manage to make extremely good decisions. I know systems that classified quite accurately images of lungs, whether there is disease or not, without using any quantitative information. So this is absolutely fascinating area, and I expect in future it will be more popular, and it's good for master students to know such techniques and keep an eye on it. The next slide. Thank you. Probabilistic reasoning. So this is what we will be focusing mostly on. This is the most well-developed technology. It is language of AI. There are good tools. It's long history, and so probabilistic logic has solid theoretical foundations, and especially Bayesian reasoning. So it's widespread, it's popular, well understood. And I just would like to recommend this textbook, classic textbook by Judy Peel, extremely good, and anyone working in this area, just it's a must. The next slide, please. Okay, again, to check if you follow me, very quick quiz. And we can go to the next slide. Okay, Bayesian networks for decision support system. The next slide, please. Bayesian reasoning is based on Bayes' theorem. And if you're not familiar with it, I will explain a little bit. So you also will hear such names as Bayes network, belief network, decision network, probabilistic directed acyclic graphical model, and so on. So they refer to the same thing. In the causes Bayes theorem. So I included in this slide notation of this theorem in terms of hypothesis and evidence. This is the classic form of this theorem, and I consider it easier to understand. So what it's all about. So literally what this theorem says is that the probability of a hypothesis H conditions upon some evidence E is equal to its likelihood, probability of this evidence given this hypothesis, times its probability prior to any evidence normalized by the probability of the evidence. So what it does the following. So if you have some prior probability of a hypothesis, so if you have some beliefs, anything like who will win this election, so this is prior, before seeing any evidence. Then when some evidence introduced, when you observe something, you can calculate posterior probability. So what probability of this hypothesis will be given that evidence? And it can be a sequence of evidence, or it can be a whole network of such evidence. So it's a very powerful approach. And why it is powerful? That you don't just talk about probabilities, how many times you toss a coin. You actually can talk about future, what doesn't happen yet. And you can calculate what is likelihood of that. But you also can take into account your beliefs, your intuition, if you want. And that is why it's so suitable for AI agent, both narrow and general AI. The next slide, please. So this is the same theorem, but in terms of events. So now we don't have hypothesis and evidence, we have two events, A and B, and it is the same. It's again, you have prior probability for certain event random, so it can happen or it may not happen. And what will be posterior probability of this event if you observe that another event actually happened, how it can influence it. The next slide, please. And if you have several events and they influence each other, you can construct Bayesian network. So here's an example of a very simple network with 4 nodes and links between them. So how one event influenced another event. And of course, you can imagine extremely complex networks, for example, genetic network or metabolic reactions in our body. It's thousands, sometimes millions of nodes, and they influence each other. So there are many, many situations in the world, processes that are good to represent using this approach, Bayesian networks. The next slide, please. Yes, so now we can consider an example. So if we want our Alexa, so we already can ask Alexa to send email to my boss. But if we want more, if we want to add more intelligence, if we want to assist, the system will decide what is the best way to contact my boss. To enable this, the system needs to know more about you, about boss, about whatever possible. So here is some background data and knowledge, like you actually can contact your boss only by email or Skype. And there are some observations. So if boss in an office, then she would respond about 50% times, but if not in office, then she doesn't check Skype messages, but is likely to answer email and so on. So you can get a sense that to enable decision making, you actually need to know. And the more you know, the better decisions you will be able to make, or train a system to help you with this. The next slide, please. So here you see a simple Bayesian network for this example. And I would like to make several observations about it. The next slide. Before we go in any further. So you can see that from that example, so this network, it doesn't flow immediately. You actually need to make some efforts to construct this Bayesian network. And this step is called knowledge engineering. So what should be nodes? So we had several entities in that example, both me, email, Skype, Office. So what to put to these nodes? And is this sufficient description in that example? Are there other factors influencing if my boss would respond or not? And there are uncertainties, usually checks, likely to respond. What does it mean? So we need to model it somehow to enable Bayesian reasoning, to start engine of this probabilistic reasoning, calculate these conditional probabilities. What should be the links? And there are different approaches for that. Most known as data-driven approach or bottom-up approach, and now we all hear data-driven decisions. So it's wonderful, it's wonderful. And in this case, yes, this network was constructed purely from data that in that example. But emerging very complex Bayesian networks, and to make them operational or comprehensible or efficient, you need a certain level of abstraction, and they will benefit from some knowledge. And not everything is in data. There are rules, there are assumptions, abstractions that are not in data. So knowledge-driven approach, knowledge about the domain, our generic knowledge can be extremely useful for constructing Bayesian networks. Or again, you can use hybrid approach, both bottom-up and top-down. Okay, the next slide, please. So here it just shows that we try now to make it all very concrete. For each node, we now consider situation in Office, not in Office, check emails, not check, and so on. So now we will go quite quickly through the slides because I have only 10 minutes left for my presentation, and I still want to show you quite a lot. Okay, the next slide and the next. The next, please. The next. So I want to go to example in Python. So Bayesian networks can be implemented in many languages. There are many languages that support Bayesian networks. No, previous one. Yes, no. Previous one, please. Yes, so there is a package, PGMPy. So you can import it, install this class, install the library and import the relevant classes. And then you can see on the right here that you can just define the structure of this Bayesian model. And then you can pass to the system all these estimates of these probabilities, probability of response, not response, in Office, not in Office. And then you can use this Bayesian network to do some reasoning. So it's very simple network, but you still can ask some questions. Of course, you can calculate just manually all these conditional probabilities, but especially if you have large networks, then it's much better if system does it for you. Okay, can you skip 2 slides? And the next one. Okay, so yes, okay, this is good. So now you can ask system, like here example, what is probability of response altogether if both in an office, or if there is yes, and you can see that the probability of response altogether is 0.58. Okay, next slide. So this is a simple question. Yes, so here's more interesting, like what is probability if both in office, if there is a response and response is by Skype. And you can see the system can answer this probability of it 0.17. So you can see that the Bayesian network enables to infer some new facts that were not initially in that example. So we didn't have in that example these probabilities. So this decision support system can decide what is the best way of contacting your boss. So, and you can imagine that you can add to this system like monitoring if there are auto response from boss that I'm out of office, or many things can be added to empower such decision support system to make a better decision. What is a good way of contacting your boss? Okay, now can we skip slides and go to the last section about robot scientist? Just want to introduce that project further on. Yes, so this is a project that I wanted to tell you about. So I'm involved in this project for 15 years. It is an AI system that can do automatic scientific discoveries. So it can assist scientists, human scientists, in producing hypotheses, interesting research questions. So what to test. It also can help to design experiments to test this hypothesis, analyze the results, and then make decisions if new knowledge was discovered or not, if it should be added to our bank of knowledge. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, and any system to be intelligent, it needs background knowledge. And you can see, I will not go into detail, but you can see it very much looks like Bayesian network. So nodes and links. In this case, it's our metabolomic pathways. And the system tried to do inference over this network to decide what is happening and what hypothesis to formulate. So this is a real system that is around already for nearly 20 years, systems that made several important discoveries. So the next slide, please. Just want to show some evidence. The next slide. Yes, so 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, so this robot scientist on a picture you see, it's discovered new gene function, and Times Magazine listed it as one of most important scientific discoveries of the year. And it was more than 10 years ago. So it just shows you the capability of such systems and how far they can go. Okay, I think I gave enough information about what decision support systems are. We had a simple example implemented in Python, and I also gave you example of a real system, very advanced system. And if you're interested, I recommended some literature, and please go and read. But as a homework, I would ask you to think what sort of decision support system you would like to have, like a personal assistant, and what it would imply, what you need, what knowledge do you need to pass to the system, and if to think about Bayesian network, what sort of network it will be to enable reasoning for such system. Thank you, and now I'm happy to take some questions. Oh, yes, I see. To pick closest to where every day would be a nice option. Fantastic, fantastic. So to pick closest to where every day, so you can formulate a task. So I want to wear every day different, or I want to wear different for work days, different for weekends. What are restrictions? Do you want like have different color every day, or do you want link it to weather forecast? So you can start thinking immediately how to make it more useful, more interesting, and the more information you pass to the system, maybe connect to other agents like your planner, your calendar, what is planned for today. If you play tennis, it will be one suggestion. If you have a webinar like I do today, it will be another suggestion. So yes, a very good and interesting example. Okay, then I will pass the microphone to the next.
Hi, Larissa. Morning. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. I just have a few slides which we want to share on behalf of SIM, because I think we're very pleased that we managed to have this masterclass with Larissa speaking. And, you know, over the last, over a year now, actually, it's already May, over a year now, we've been getting a lot of people interested in the program that we are running. So Larissa is actually the program director for this Masters in Data Science, but not just the Masters, it also comes with, because it's stackable, it comes with a postgraduate certificate and postgraduate diploma. So allow me to run through with you a little bit about the program at SIM. Well, this was a photograph which we took with Larissa and also Professor Zimmer, I think about 2 years ago. Professor Zimmer actually came to Singapore a year ago to help us launch the Masters in Data Science. And he actually gave a public lecture at SIM, which was well attended by over 200 people. And our collaboration with Goldsmiths, which is one of the esteemed colleges of the University of London, goes back to 1993 when we started an undergraduate program in computing and information systems. But of course, our collaboration with London is, you know, next year we're actually celebrating our 35th anniversary, because we started with one management undergrad program in '86. So just to give a bit of background, from one program, we went into other programs, including programs with LSE, UCL, Goldsmiths, right? So in terms of the master's program, I felt that this was a good overall picture. And Larissa, please jump into it, also share, because not only do we have the data science, the full master's MSc in data science, but we also have 2 specialist pathways, all right, in AI as well as in fintech. So, and so all these we have, because it's stackable, we have the postgraduate cert, postgraduate dip, and then you continue, then you get the master's as well. So these are is a breakdown of in terms of the areas of specialization. And this is something which we think might interest some of you. This is taken last February, but when we did a check recently, we found that it hadn't differed very much. It's in US dollars in terms of the average data scientist salary. Okay, so in US dollars, 95,000 US. And so it shows that there is a demand for data scientists. And this next slide also shows in terms of experience from junior to senior. This one is in Singapore dollars. Okay, so especially if you go with more and more experience. And what are the kinds of jobs in Singapore? So we have, from our very first intake, which started last month, this MSc in data science, people from all walks of life coming to do the program. Quite a few of them actually are already in the area. They just need the qualification. Okay, so whether it's data scientist, machine learning engineer, or data engineer. Are there, Larissa, would you want to add anything in terms of jobs? No? Okay.
I can add that the demand for data scientists is so high that according to estimates, companies are struggling to fill in their positions. So there is an estimate of delayed in 6 months to find specialists to fill in their position, and in academia it's about 1 year. I just can tell from my personal experience. We have research projects, we advertise position, we don't have many applications. There are not many specialists. It's usually 1 year delay, and then you find someone, you're so happy, and then some company pay him triple or even more salary and they're leaving. So I personally experience this pain, this shortage of specialists in data science.
Yes. In fact, just reminded me that as I was doing my, capturing the latest salary and all that, I kept seeing the same advertisement, and this was something which we spotted like last year in September, and it was still being repeated that they still need data scientists to join them. And this was, I think, one of the foreign banks, Credit Suisse in Singapore. Yeah. Right. So a little bit more about the program structure. We've started, and but the next intake will start in October. So we will, one semester, it runs for 22 weeks, and we are having 10 lessons. So every other week you have the same routine, same pattern, whether it's a Saturday class or a weeknight class. In fact, currently our class is on Saturday at 12 o'clock and at 3:30. So alternate weeks you have 2 classes on a Saturday, and then alternate weeks you have 1 class on a Saturday, right? And there are also course, in fact, the coursework is due pretty soon as well. Also soon. We just started class, but now, coursework is coming up already, the deadline. Yeah. So the mode of delivery, I think Dr. Lee is, I thought I saw him online. He's one of our lecturers for the master's program. And this term, we actually have 3 modules, and the feedback has been pretty good from the students and the faculty. Dr. Peter Leong, who teaches one of the modules, says that everything's good, Larissa, he's very pleased with the support from Goldsmiths. The curriculum, very good. Thank you. So a bit about the admission criteria. Now, so we think in terms of Route 1 versus Route 2, right? If you're in Route 1, you have a relevant subject. If you look at the list of relevant subjects, it's actually quite a wide range, okay? All the way from economics to computing. So it's quite a wide range. Why economics? Because, in economics, it's very mathematical, right? So this requires you to have the basic in maths. Now, if you do not have one of these undergraduate degrees, not in maths, not in finance, not in marketing and finance, not just marketing alone, must be marketing and finance. In fact, just reminds me that one of our current students is actually in marketing. She's head of marketing, right? So if you don't have one of these undergraduate degrees under Route 1, then under Route 2, what you need to do is to do a Coursera module. So it's like a preparatory course before you come into the program, right? So in any subject, whether it's biology or sociology, for example. So if you do a preparatory course online, and in fact, this preparatory course online, we would recommend that all students do it, especially if you've been out of school for a while. Okay, so that's for Route 2. Now also, Route 2, looking at the planning, all right, what Goldsmiths has done and what we are planning to do, looking at the the plan for the module planners, all what we have mapped out for each semester, it's actually better for the Route 2 students to join us in April. Okay, so just a little bit of information about that. So it doesn't mean that you can't join us in October. It just means that it's better. It just flows better, right, in terms of the modules. I think this is my last slide besides the thank you. All right, just to say that we're starting October and you need to apply by 1st of July.